Okay, and Martin Shkreli, the poster child for off-the-charts drug pricing, not acting like a former CEO facing security fraud charges. Here's a video of him threatening rapper Ghostface Killer. You might remember that Shkreli recently purchased the only copy of Wu-Tang Clan's latest album for $2 million. Now he's talking to Vice. He's walking the streets of New York City riding a hoverboard while carrying a $15,000 bottle of Bordeaux. A Vice correspondent asked him if he's evil.
I think I'm the opposite of evil, right? I mean, I think that almost it became a thing where I wanted to agree to do it, like participate in it and say, oh yeah, I am evil. You know, let me be the bad guy. And I started doing funny and fun stuff that maybe even extended that concept of, yeah, sure, I'm evil. I'll be the Bond villain. And but the reality is, you know, you're talking to someone that cares deeply about helping people's lives. So I think the idea that I represent pharma is insane. That I don't. I mean, I don't like most drug companies. I think most of them do a bad job. And I think that I'm different.
Well, can we just talk about this? There's Shkreli, and then the correspondent's drinking.
It's like, she's like, well, she's going, oh my God, you know, drinking like, yeah. She could have made a. You know, with Shkreli, is youth not wasted on the young? I mean,
wait, that guy is not just young.
No, but if he got 10 years old, don't you think he'll look back and say,
no,
I was such an idiot? No,
really?
No,
I don't think that's just youth idiocy. Nobody I know was that stupid when they were young.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is like a whole other sort of.
I don't know. Anyway, he's been subpoenaed to appear on Capitol Hill next week. His notorious hike of more than 5,000% on Turing's Daraprim drug shined a spotlight, I guess, according to mainstream media, on the issue of all drug prices, which, you know, the same thing happens to. And it's become a hot topic in D.C., and the man chairing the proceedings is with us this morning. Congressman Jason Chaffetz is Chaffetz from Utah. He's the chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Welcome. It's great to see you.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Good morning.
We talk about this a lot, and we like free markets, and we understand that drug companies spend a lot of money and 9 out of 10 drugs fail. And then we hear it's really not a free market because Medicare can't really negotiate, which would normally happen if it wasn't part of the ACA, where they got excluded from that. So we're not sure where we are. Is Trump onto something by saying maybe we let Medicare negotiate?
No, I'm opposed personally to government price controls.
But that's what I do. Well, but if Medicare is just negotiating because they have a big buying.
Well, the focus of what we're trying to get here are generics. What Mr. Shkreli found is an opportunity that he exploited, and that is when you have a generic, then you get these priority drug review certificates that they turn around and sell to people. So I look at it and think, why is the FDA not able to turn around approvals? So if somebody jacks up the price from less than $20 to more than $700, there's going to be increased competition if others can get into the market. But when the FDA is holding back, then there is an opportunity to let the marketplace compete. That's why we want to look at this, because these drug companies are taking these and selling these certificates for hundreds of millions of dollars, and just to have a 4-month advantage. So how do we accelerate what's happening at the FDA? That's what I'm interested in.
Just overall, it's an arbitrary number, the 12 years, whatever it is, of patent protection. Then you got things for biotechnology and biosimilars, which is different. And then you got stuff in the TPP that goes 5 years, other places. So none of this is, there's some arbitrary time periods here to try to allow companies to recoup their investment. But how do you do it in a way that doesn't allow a gaming in the system one way or the other, where they stay high too long, or people come in too early and drug companies go out of business and don't innovate?
You're talking about generics. Here, in this case, this is a drug that's been on the market for decades.
No, I'm not talking about Daraprim. I'm talking about
that's the focus of the hearing. That's the focus.
I wish it wasn't, and because to allow Hillary Clinton to somehow think that J&J or Pfizer is in any way similar, or to conflate the two.
They're not. And that's why we didn't call them to the hearing.
Conflated in the mainstream media all the time.
I mean, look, they spend billions of dollars in research and development. Here,
well, that's the bigger issue. This Shkreli issue is, you know, I mean,
and again, it's not about him, but it is about how we can get the FDA to accelerate this process so that there is increased competition.
Well, I like the broader discussion of how, because it's a problem. If Hillary Clinton gets elected, or if Bernie Sanders,
but this was true of Valiant.
Right.
There was a whole. This was
there are
a number of
There's a
drug
hepatitis C drug that costs a couple of $100,000. I mean, it's just the overall notion. You tell someone a drug costs $200,000 a year, they're going to say they're getting, that they're getting taken to the cleaner. It's not necessarily the case if it costs $1 billion to develop it.
Just back to the idea of being able to negotiate, Medicare being able to negotiate, you're completely opposed to that?
Well, what I don't want is the government to just come in and create these price controls. And so that becomes a dangerous market. And I want to see increased competition. I want the FDA to accelerate the process by which we can get through this, lower those costs, and I think that will create a better marketplace.
What about both of those
particularly, well,
alternatives,
but particularly in the generic market. And
I see what you're talking about with the regulatory hurdles, but
Yeah.
it strikes me that it might be a good idea to allow a big bulk buyer the room to negotiate just like any other private enterprise.
We want them to be able to get the best prices they can, but if they come in with an arbitrary number and just set price controls, I think you will see a decrease in the competition, the decrease in the investment.
Others will say, look, other governments do this all the time, which is why the United States ends up paying for the
Right.
bulk of all this development, and we should make sure that in our trade deals we fix that other governments aren't allowed to set these price controls.
Well, there's a good argument to say that we're not competing on the world marketplace as an accelerant because the FDA process will cost $1 billion to develop a drug, and they can go over.
Americans are paying for the bulk of all the research and development that goes on.
And I'd much rather live in the United States of America and have our healthcare system above anybody else. We're trying to fight back Obamacare, and we can do a lot of different things to replace that and drive down the cost of healthcare.
Who do you endorse?
Marco Rubio. Love
Yeah,
Marco.
good.
Can I just ask you a question? If you were a poor person in America, you would prefer to be in our medical care system than in any other country in the world?
Oh, I think so, yeah. The United States of America is the best place to live. It's the greatest country on the face of the
That's a
planet.
loaded question.
I think our health
What
care
are you
is
saying?
better.
That's a loaded question. What are you saying? So
When it comes to healthcare services, there's
poor people,
there's an argument to be made that you might want to live in Canada, you might want to live in the UK. If you had a terrible disease, you might want to live in...
whether it's a valid argument.
Well, but that's what I'm asking.
Right.
That's the question I'm
no,
asking. I'm saying if you were poor and had a terrible disease, would you prefer to live here or somewhere else?
Absolutely, in the United States. We've got the best doctors, we've got the best health care. We've got a compassionate society that helps take care of the poor. If you can't afford this, there are lots of other things. I look at Shriners. I love what they do.
Right.
You're born with a birth defect. You want to be in the United States of
You
America.
might even get to see a specialist before you die. It might not take 9 months.
That's
to see a
right.
specialist.
And that's true, too. That's why I said there's
I don't know.
a lot to the argument
I don't know if there is.
on all sides. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Okay, when we